Okay. Happy Friday, everybody. I was having some problems getting logged in to go live. So I am home today and I am going to be talking about the importance of resilience. And the reason I wanted to do this live today is because May is Mental Health Month, and I think it's really important that we talk about that. And the importance of resilience plays a role in that as our kids are developing. The onset of mental illness is earlier, especially with anxiety and depression, which are the most common for our kiddos. Honey, I'm live. I need you not to be here. And a lot of us are home with our kids and we're trying to navigate all this. What is resilience? Resiliency is our ability to cope regardless of the situation we're in. So if we have big stressors, traumatic events, facing adversity, so life events that happen to everyone and how well we handle them. So some of us have more resilience in regards to different situations just based on what unrattles us, and some of us don't. So you could take two kids from like poverty who has experienced lots of trauma, lots of things, and then a child who is brought up middle class, never really needed or wanted for anything, had a loving, supportive family. You would think that they'd be more resilient, and they have some resiliency built in. But this kid over here, from like face value, you would expect not to, can handle things better. So it's a really individualized thing. And no matter how good we think we are doing with our kids, there's always ways to increase it. This is important for you as adults too. I find that with my anxiety and depression, that I really have to amp up my resiliency in order to cope through life. Otherwise, I get really set back. And I was just doing some research on what anxiety can be masked as. And a lot of us that are overachievers or like things a very particular way and kind of amped up on a lot of things and maybe lose focus because it's just overwhelming trying to figure out how everything's going to go and nobody's doing it the way we need it to be done. And it's just camouflage, like a lot of things that we maybe contribute to, like annoying behaviors or personality traits of people. So you just really need to be paying attention to figuring out how we can support one another, and especially our kids, because they don't know how to ask. They don't know if something is normal or typical or what have you. And having anxiety and depression doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just something else we have to figure out how to cope and overcome. Through our life, we face lots of different challenges, and no matter who we are, whether we have a mental health diagnosis or not, there's lots of things that we have to overcome. And this is just one of those things. And the sooner we learn how to build that, the better. Some of us are really good at math and some of us are really good at science. Some of us are just good at art. We all have our strengths, and coming together to support one another to fortify things that maybe aren't as strong as other traits we have. So resilient people don't let negative thoughts derail their efforts. So I know personally, I like to think that I don't let things derail me, but it can. There's just some things that really can throw me off into a negative loop. And you see that a lot with kids. Excuse me, get up. Sorry, my child is playing with the cat and he's not supposed to because he's 4 and the cat doesn't really like him right now. So I had to correct that. So instead of letting thoughts derail you, resilient people consistently practice positive thinking. And so this can be a trained habit. And I keep seeing all these amazing TED Talks and things talking about how you can build habits in your head to change your thought process. So there's a lot of things with different therapies where it's all about, your thought process. And I am not a licensed therapist, but a lot of people can start building these positive things before they ever need to go to like talk therapy. and build some resilience and coping skills. And even if somebody is never diagnosed with a mental illness, they can still have depressive episodes and face hardship. And this resiliency thing helps no matter what. So people that are resilient often have like optimistic thinking. They're self-confident. They have a good sense of humor. They can find humor in a lot of situations. The ability to stay focused is a big one for me to look at, especially when they're under pressure. So again, certain situations we thrive in more than others, but being an optimist does not mean that you don't get sad. It does not mean that you maybe don't struggle sometimes. It just means that you can look at the brighter side and you know it's coming, even if life's kind of hard. So knowing that and knowing and build these skills while we're children. Childhood is a time of hope, and I think it's really important that we capitalize on that and help build that when kids kind of have that light outlook on life, right? So in order to help your child build resilience, I have some tips to go over with you guys. And I'll kind of go in depth. And, if I say something that doesn't fit your lifestyle, that's totally fine. You can find other ways. This is just one perspective from the knowledge I have. And again, I am not, the know-it-all, end-all, be-all information. This is just a place to hopefully give you guys some ideas. So when we're talking with our children and they're facing adversity, difficult situations, learning how to cope, reminding them that bad feelings don't last forever. So it's really important to learn that sometimes we just got to ride that wave. Things will get better. Showing them that there's a purpose and prompt them to do things differently. So if they keep having the same results, sorry, I'm live, and so my husband just came home, and my kid is having a really hard time being quiet. So we're just going to keep powering through this. So reminding them that they can try things and do them differently. So that's a really hard thing that I've been experiencing with my child. He's kind of got a set of rigid thinking because he's really smart, but he only has so much information. Right. And so the more information we have, the easier it is to know that things can be a little differently. And some of that comes just from life experience and time. And looking back, like when I was a teen, there were some things that I had a harder time coping with because I just didn't know, even though I thought I did. Right. So every age is going to experience this. And, even young adults, and there's, you can be 60 and be experiencing something for the very first time, never have any firsthand knowledge, and really struggling to cope with it because it's all new. And that's okay. We take anything that we do know and try to build with that. So if your child did overcome something, and you can talk about that as your example of how they did that and ask them those prompting questions to have them help use that critical they connect something they were successful in to something currently that they're struggling with and that they could be successful with that. The next tip is trying to normalize setbacks. So it is okay if things don't go well the first time, right? It's okay if we are not great at skateboarding. It is okay if we are not Picasso artists, right? At age 4. It's just about the experience and having fun, and that's okay. You start with little tasks and can be big, making sure kids understand that life can be difficult. It is difficult. Life is not easy. We have to work hard for what we want, and we appreciate that. And that's sort of the beauty in it, to really enjoy and embrace and live life to its fullest, is to take those challenges and put a positive spin. What can we learn out of those challenges? The next tip is helping children see problems can be solved. So we kind of touched base on that a little bit about showing them that things can be done differently and using their critical thinking skills. And that is huge. So there's this whole science behind teaching life skills to people to help them cope through life. And problem solving is one of the biggest ones that you can give your kids. So even just like, what did my son do? He screams. He screams at the top of his lungs when he's sort of scared or freaked out about something and doesn't know how to solve the problem. So sometimes it's just like the hose is spewing out somewhere, or he made a mess somewhere and he's never figured out how to clean that, or he's never had to, and he screams and just sort of panics and sits still. And we know that, like, okay, let's be calm, let's talk about this, what's happened, what can we do to fix it, what's safe. So we go through all of that processing with him, and it helps if we're calm. So there is some situations where I don't stay calm, like on my hardwood floors when he spills something on that. Um, but I am learning to do that. So I'm practicing my resiliency skills as well. As kids get older, like if they're having challenges with their friends, building relationships is a cornerstone of humans in society. So being able to do that and maintain healthy relationships is really important. So problem solving in that aspect is going to be helpful as well. So encourage your children to keep things in perspective. So they often don't realize that their problems aren't as big as they think they are, which we are all guilty of too. Oh, those are beautiful. So kids embrace some really beautiful things. Like I have a dandelion pot here for just because my kid loves me, right? So he's lost the dandelions before when he wanted to give them to somebody else, and that was a really big deal that we had to talk about how it was okay and not the end of time. So again, 4-year-old. But you look at the way, like if they lost a toy, when they get a splinter, it's really funny how sometimes they bounce off like, oh, I'm totally fine. And other times, I'm pretty sure they lost a limb and it's really just a sliver. So really making sure we're paring down and we're not letting them over exaggerate. So over exaggeration is a big sign of anxiety and not a coping skill. So we have to help them recognize that problems aren't connected to everything else and bring it in, and then it helps manage it and helps it make it solvable as well. So remembering the value of humor is a really good one. So we talked about how resilient people often have a good sense of humor. We have to be able to laugh at ourselves, laugh at situations. Really, like that's the only way I make it through some things. All of you that are parents, how many of you laugh after a situation? You kind of have to, or even when your kid's naughty, when they're not looking, sometimes you're just kind of laughing at the absurdity of what you have to teach them. And like, it's kind of miraculous how our brains work and how they're growing and learning. And you can enjoy that. And, being able to realize that not everything has to be so serious, and as long as it's well intentioned and you're not like making fun of or belittling, laughter is really good medicine and help you can kind of navigate a tough situation and allow you to release some of that anxiety and stress that goes around a situation, and allows your brain to start using its problem solving skills. So another good tip is encourage young people to accept responsibility for their actions. So consequences are what they are. We have to learn. That's the only way we learn is having logical and natural consequences. And kids need to learn how to accept responsibility. So whether that is they left a toy outside and it was stolen or damaged by the weather, or they were mean to somebody and they don't want to be their friend anymore. those are skills that you have to learn. You have to learn what's acceptable and how to honor and respect people, things, places. All of that's really big. And again, that goes back to those cornerstones of society and building relationships. There is consequences when we don't behave correctly and we're not kind. And then if we don't follow through with what we say we're going to follow through on, or we are procrastinating, we can get in trouble if we procrastinate, or we don't get the things we want if we procrastinate. There's endless possibilities of what I could go if you were. There would be poor decisions and consequences with those. And I think if you take the time to reflect on everything and take the time to let that be a learning opportunity, natural consequences feel icky. We don't really need to punish beyond that. The consequences are much different than discipline and punishment. So when we look at like logical consequences, technically that can be a punishment, but we're using those in line with what actually is going to happen. And as a parent, we just follow through with that and make sure we're upholding that to be able to teach our child a lesson instead of it coming out like through anger. That's sort of how I distinguish those. What's another one? So you can use teachable moments all the time. So when you're reading stories or watching television or just discussing things that have happened or that you've noticed, you can point out resiliency in that. So there is some really good books on it. I think I have one on here. I know I read it. Now I can't remember if I posted it. It was called The Hugging Tree. And it was all about this tree that was on this little like rocky ledge of the sea that had no place being able to grow there, and it did, and how people went there and made it beautiful. And it's a really great story. But resiliency looks like a lot of different things. And sometimes that's not even the key point in the story, but you still find that. I think using characters that are relatable to your kids is really important, but also allowing them to see real life people that have shown resiliency and talking about that's important, and relating it to things that your kids have done or could do, I think is really important. They don't always have the aha moments when you expect them to, and that's okay. The more consistent we are and model in how we behave and model in the things that we teach them, they're going to have some consistency in seeing that. And then that helps build those positive habits to build resiliency. So remember that learning is often really frustrating. So when your kid throws down their pencil because they just don't get it, or they throw down their bike because it's just too hard, it's because we get frustrated, and that's normal. But how do we help our kid overcome that? So it's really hard to watch your kid get angry and mad and maybe kind of disrespect something or give up. And there's a lot of emotions that come with that for us. So trying to allow that emotion to be theirs, and it has nothing to do with us. So staying calm and reaffirming them, and maybe they need a break from whatever they're trying. They need a different, they need to be able to like turn their brain off and allow it to come back fresh. And some of that's just through some humor, some conversation. Sometimes we're not the best ones to be teaching our kids, so there's that too. Because we get frustrated and take a lot of all those complex feelings and project them a little bit. So allowing your kid to like get frustrated, and it's okay to be frustrated, but what do we do with that frustration is kind of a huge tool to learn. We don't want them, giving up when they're, in college and they're supposed to be writing their final paper and it's what their degree's on, because they kept learning that it's okay just to throw a tantrum, right? So you can see how throwing tantrums at age 4 and learning how to navigate that while we stay calm and collected and support them is really important for them to learn as they get older. So if we are trying to correct their behaviors by fear or punishment, we're just teaching them those habits instead of healthy coping skills and problem solving. It's hard to do, and sometimes I'm better at it than others. It's just we just have to try to remember to do that. Big thing is providing support. By providing support and showing them and rallying behind them, they grow confidence because they are less afraid to try things. They feel confident, like it's okay if I fail because I can try again. And that failure is not due to lack of trying or incompetence or anything. Sometimes we just maybe don't have all the skills. Sometimes things just take trial and error, right? And that's okay. So being okay with that. And if you build that, then you also have that confidence as your parent and as the parent that your child's not just failing because they've given up or they're not trying hard enough. And some kids, they're trying hard looks a lot different than others, and that's okay. Some of us have strengths in other areas, and recognizing that you are the expert on your kid and being able to advocate for them as they go through and they're supposed to be hitting typical milestones and things. It's really important for us to advocate. We know what our kids' limitations are, where their strengths are, and not every way things are taught is the best way for them to comprehend. So sometimes we have to get creative and help and support that. And when our kids feel supported, they have confidence, even if they're struggling with something. It helps build that resilience and that will to continue and not give up. You can also, by showing them that at a young age, you let them know that you have information and advice when they need it. Because when things get really tough and they don't know, I really hope our kids are coming to us with good information instead of misguided information from their peers or outside adults that maybe don't share the same values as you do. So it's good to have open conversation with our kids, and they can trust the information we're giving. We're not lying to them. We're honest, and we have their best interests at heart. And that's really important, especially as our kids grow. We are going to transition our relationships with them as they grow and grow independence. And that's hard and challenging as a parent. But as they grow into adulthood, knowing that you've built that foundation and they can come to you, I feel like that's really rewarding. I go to my parents about a lot of things, and I love that I have that relationship with them. I can't even imagine not having that. So that's what I want for my child as he grows too. And I'm only at age 4, almost 5. And I know we have lots of trials and tribulations ahead of us. Remember that my goal is to make sure he is a productive citizen and a nice human being when he becomes an adult, and that we can talk and respect one another. So that's what our goal is. The last tip I have for you is, and I talked about this before, in the power of play. So you're creating like a safe and secure, positive environment and for them to learn and explore, right? So the more you do that, creating that positive, safe environment, the more they can build confidence and not be afraid to try things. So they're really trying on a lot of skills as they grow, and finding out their likes and dislikes. They're finding out that some things come easier than others, and that sometimes they really have to work hard for what they want, even, it didn't come as easy as other things. And some kids have crazy natural abilities, and hardly anything is hard for them. And that's amazing, but not all of us are like that. And that's hard when you from the outside, the perspective, if you're a kid who's struggling with something and you see another kid you admire or wish you were like. So having that safe environment at home to try and explore those things really builds their self-confidence out in the world when they're entering it in society. Emphasizing the importance of relationships Again, I talked about that cornerstone. When our kids are out in society, we really want them to know how to treat people, and the importance of, honor and trust and confidence, and, all these things that make sure that we're treating people with respect, and, honoring people that are different than us. And that's okay. And that's what's important. Things aren't important. That's what's important. And it's okay to honor the differences that we all have. Um, Making sure our kids have a sense of purpose, because when we don't have purpose, that's when we often flounder, I guess would be the word. When we don't have purpose, we just don't know our direction. We don't know what to do, and it's harder to find solutions to our problems if we don't have a purpose. So helping navigate that and guide that, it really needs to be self-imposed. Like right now, we are really big on making sure Aiden knows, like, his purpose in life is to learn. It's okay to make mistakes, right? And as he grows, it'll continue to be that. And then as he kind of develops that higher functioning of thinking, he'll start to create and identify his own purpose in life, and we want to support that and make sure it's positive. Having a sense of purpose just to be a good human, I think, is a really positive one, and give you good direction on how to problem solve, how to cope through life, how to build relationships, that sort of thing. So as you can see, all of these just kind of help make you a strong functioning adult in society, make you a good human being, right? And make you be able to be a human being that can enjoy life. I mean, what would be the point if everything was miserable, right? Like that doesn't sound all that fulfilling. So the more resilient we are, the more fulfilling life is, and the more we can find joy in the journey. And I hope you're able to help support that in your kids. And I hope these tips kind of gave you some insight and some reminders. I know I can always use reminders. And I hope you enjoyed that today. As always, please always feel like you can comment, leave me information if you have a topic you'd like me to cover. Please share and subscribe to our channel, Parent Cafe Live, and check out our Facebook page at Alliance for Youth. And we have lots of information and events going on through our organization. And we support a lot of things going on in our community here in Great Falls. So thanks, and I hope you guys have a great day.